Alright, so when you take these two phones, the first thing is the feel in the hand, and I feel that the iPhone definitely, you know, being a smaller phone, it fits better in the hand. Now, the iPhone is metal design, aluminum, and it definitely feels good in the hand. These antenna marks gives a beautiful design. This is the space gray version of the iPhone 6s, and I must say it's a beautiful phone. Now, the hump of the camera doesn't bother me at all. The buttons and the buttons placements are nicely placed and they look beautiful. And at the bottom here, you know, it's just a beautiful looking phone all around. I really love the design. I love the front, and it's a really good looking phone. Fits great in the hand, maybe a little bit on the slippery side, but it doesn't grab fingerprints on the back, and I definitely like that. It's a beautiful phone. Beautiful phone. But I ain't gonna take nothing away from the Nexus. The Nexus with this polycarbonate, this plastic in the back, but the plastic has a little bit of a rubbery feel. I like the way the camera hump is. Beautiful design, the fingerprint in the back, and with everything of this design and the Lexus logos look good. Now, when it comes to the buttons, I don't have too much problem with the placement because I'm able to make it out. But yeah, they are on the cheaper side. But I still think it's a gorgeous design phone, and it's definitely nice. So when you talk about design and build, I gotta give it to the iPhone. The iPhone got a better overall design with the materials that they're using. Alright, let's talk about these fingerprint scanners. Let's talk about the fingerprint scanners. They both open up fast. They both open up super fast. I mean, you can't even get a chance to look at your lock screen when you're going into these phones. They're very fast. But I just feel the Nexus imprint might be a little bit more accurate than the iPhones. Now, the iPhone is fast and it's accurate, but man, something about this Nexus imprint. But you know what? I gotta give it to the iPhone. They have it in the front, a little bit easier to grab and, you know, to use and to put your finger there. It's a little bit more accurate. So I gotta give it to that. I gotta give it to Apple when it comes to the fingerprint scanner. Now, when it comes to Android Pay versus Apple Pay is in front of the game. Apple Pay definitely got more vendors, more everything. So I gotta give it to Apple. Apple, when it comes to the payment solution, they definitely got more vendors. They got a lot of more stuff set up. They're good. So I gotta give them a little bit of the nod. But me personally, I prefer the way Android Pay is. I just prefer it a little bit more. Now, when it comes to the speakers, it becomes very, very interesting. For a mono speaker at the bottom, there is no doubt we don't have to go through long sessions in figuring out who's the winner. Definitely when it comes to the speaker, I gotta give it to the iPhone. I didn't think so, but now hearing it together, the iPhone got a better speaker, more quality, louder sound. I'm impressed. I wouldn't have guessed because I was impressed by this speaker. I like the way it sounds, but it's just the app when it comes to the bottom speaker, Apple definitely got it. Now the speaker placement, I rather having the speaker right at me, but the sound is just coming from the Apple a little bit better. So the iPhone got it going on when it comes to that speaker. Now, let's talk about the Lightning port versus USB-C. The Lightning port, more than likely, Apple is looking to go USB Type-C. So the Lightning port is gonna, is gonna be that change all over again. But the Lightning port has been awesome to use. You get it right the first time, just like with USB-C now, we get it right the first time. So I give it a wash between both connectors. Now, when it comes to battery life, I gotta give it to the Nexus. The Nexus got that new dose feature, so the battery is just lasting a little bit longer than normally you would think. With a 2700 milliamp hour battery, it's definitely going a full day, definitely 16 hours, maybe even 18 hours on a moderate use. And you can't kill this. You can kill it in about 10 to 12 hours. I would say about, probably closer to 10 hours. You can kill this phone. With the iPhone, in some cases, you can kill this in 8 hours. You can go as far as 14 hours. But right there, we got to give it to the Nexus on battery life. Because of that dose feature and everything else that's going on. We got a Morphe pack that we normally use with this particular 6S. So that's what it is right there. Now let's go into the cameras. Cameras is becoming the most important thing. This is our main camera phones. The iPhone 6S has gone from 8 megapixels to 12 megapixels. And I think it's a definite improvement when it comes to daytime shots. I think they definitely have an improvement. But the issue is, when it comes to the nighttime shots, Apple took a little bit 2 steps back versus going 2 steps forward. So when it comes to the night shots, all day long, I gotta give it to the Nexus. This 12.3 megapixel camera is outdoing the iPhone's 12 megapixel camera. Nighttime shots. Let me start with the nighttime shots. Nighttime shots, the Nexus camera can bring in more light. Now, they both lack in OIS. That's why this comparison is so good, because these phones match up so close. Now, you got the laser focusing. You got that flash. That flash is so bright. So when it comes to flash, focusing, night shots, I got to give it to the Nexus. Nexus is controlling that area versus this iPhone. But iPhone and their app, they take beautiful shots. It's very simple. You go in and out the camera, you take your shot, and goodbye. Apple have a beautiful camera app. It just works, because main thing that most people want is to go into their phone, snap that shot, put it back in their pocket. You can definitely do that with the Apple iPhone 6. But I find that their daytime shots, their regular shots, are not as crisp, not as nice as this Nexus camera. Now, a lot of people have said, even myself, that when it comes to the Nexus 5X camera and the Nexus 6P, that they're the same camera. No, they have some differences. They're the same camera, but they're tweaked a little bit different. But this is still an awesome camera. And I'm telling you, I think this camera has surpassed the iPhone. This so-called mid-range phone has now surpassed the top of the food chain, the iPhone camera. In night shots and in day shots, in focusing, in the simplicity of the app, I may have to give it to the iPhone. But other than that, this is a better camera. Straight up. Front camera, I gotta give it to the iPhone because of their flash. They're both 5 megapixels, but I think the technology that Apple got with the front facer, it's a little bit better on the iPhone, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to the processor, we all know that The 808 processor is no slouch. It's a top-notch processor. It just works. It's in the LG G4, which I love. It's in the LG V10, which I'm getting. And I'm telling you, the 808 is no slouch. This 808 is running. But you know what? The A9 processor just runs a little bit more, definitely runs a little bit more faster. This is a lighter OS, a little bit less to push, and it's running. So when it comes to the processor, I gotta give it to the iPhone. Now when it comes to the OS, when it comes to Android and the way Android is versus Apple, I gotta give it to Android. I prefer Android. I just think to customize my screen, make my screen look the way it wants, being able to do more than I want to do, I'm going to go with Android. All right. So pretty much we're going to start summing this up. But before we do that, let's go into these headphone jacks. These headphone jacks, I'm telling you, the iPhone gives out more sound, better quality sound than the Nexus. It sounds better, and they probably lead the pack from all phones in that area. So I gotta give it to the iPhone. Definitely works. App stores, hey, I'm not gonna turn this to Apple versus Android, but you know what? When you're on a budget, you're gonna want the Google Play Store more than the Apple Store. I'm gonna tell you that right now, because price comes into effect. So the screen, I haven't spoke about the screen. You got 720p versus 1080p. When it comes to video and stuff like that, I'm telling you, you're gonna want a 1080p screen versus this 720. Now, 400 pixels, 400 and some odd pixels in the Nexus. I know you guys are looking at the brightness of the screen. Don't let the brightness of the screen fool you. This is a better screen. This is a better looking screen. When it comes to watching videos, 5.2 inch screen, 4.7 inch screen, but it's not 1080p. It is 750p, and that's just not enough in 2015. Apple, you gotta step up your game. Now, when it comes to the screen, with the nits and the brightness and how low it can go, Apple. When it comes to looking at it in direct sunlight, we gotta go with the Apple on that. So even though the screen, I gave the nod to the Nexus, there is some parts of this screen that are better than the Nexus. So it's subjective. It's definitely a subjective area and stuff like that. But Apple, you are selling this phone for $650 starting, but you know nobody can survive. Nobody can survive with 16 gigs of storage. Google, they got 16 gigs of storage too, but at $379. $379 versus $650. Move up to 32 gigs. 32 gigs for the Nexus 5X is $429. Apple moves up $100 to $750. This is not a $750 phone. In my opinion, for what you got going on, 2015, this is not a $750 phone. This is a mid-range phone now. With that 750p screen, this is a mid-range phone. Now, you got this particular gimmick, which is not, for me, is not in effect yet. No one is going to use it. No one is going to use it that much. It's just a fancy gimmick. No big deal. It's not even worth talking about in my book, because people want the basics. And when it comes to getting everything done, you can get everything done on both of these phones. It's just that one phone comes a lot more cheaper. So with this comparison, straight up, I gotta give it to the Nexus. Nexus wins hands down, in my opinion, because price gotta take a big effect in this. Apple 6S got a better build. It's a beautiful looking phone, but the Nexus ain't no slouch. Camera, Nexus has surpassed Apple. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I'm telling you guys what I feel. That's what it is. So when it comes to this comparison, the Nexus 5X wins, hands down, no argument.